Breaking news, shots fired at a Contra Costa County BART station. Chaotic moments when police opened fire on a suspect who jumped on the tracks. And the question tonight, was the suspect armed? Plus, two women attacked just minutes apart on San Francisco's Embarcadero in broad daylight. The arrest made in these shocking assaults.
It's terribly shocking. I know people who jog here, and I walk here frequently.
And the Bay Area experiencing one of the driest Februaries in a long time. How long the dry conditions are expected to last. And thank you for joining us. I'm Juliette Goodrich. We begin with breaking news in the East Bay. An investigation underway right now after police fired a suspect who jumped onto the tracks of a BART station in an apparent attempt to get away. It happened at the El Cerrito del Norte BART station around 2 this afternoon. The station has since been closed. KPIX5's Joe Vasquez is live at the scene with late breaking details for us. Joe.
And Juliette, the station is still closed. As you can see, there is a large police presence here as they're investigating this officer-involved shooting. And police say this started around 2 o'clock this afternoon when they got a call for a domestic disturbance on board the train. An argument between a young man and a woman. The BART police chief says officers arrived here with guns drawn and confronted the suspect. Now, what happened next? We talked to several witnesses about that, including one who did not want to be identified.
The train operator let us know we will be held here for a couple of minutes. Literally after that transmission went off, you hear them running. And then that's when they ran out. So then that's when I went out behind them, and then the shots just went off. As soon as I poke my head out, all you hear is about 6, 7 shots went off. About 7, 8 times. And then when you just smell gunpowder. Horrible. It was horrific. They didn't have to do that to him. They didn't.
The young man jumped on the tracks and kept running and was asked to stop, but chose not to.
What do you think about all this right here?
You know, I appreciate what our police department is. They keep us safe. There's always two sides to every story. I just saw my angle. I don't know what went down prior to that.
Is it possible the young man pulled his weapon and that they were reacting to that?
No, he was on the train with his girlfriend. They were finna ride the BART train just like everybody else. And you can clearly see that he wasn't trying to pull out his weapon or anything, because as he was running from the police, he was holding on to his pants. He didn't want it to come out because he knows when he jumped down in the tracks, it must have came out of his pocket, and that's what pursued them to start shooting.
An ambulance rushed the young man to the hospital with critical injuries. We talked to several witnesses who said that the young woman who was with him was screaming. She was yelling out to officers and to anyone who would listen that he was too young for this, that he was 17 years old. We're still trying to verify his age with authorities. And speaking of authorities, the police chief of BART, Ed Alvarez, he held a news conference here just a few minutes ago, just before this newscast. Here's how he explained the confrontation.
Officers responded to a call at the El Cerrito del Norte BART station of a domestic disturbance on board one of our trains in direction of Warm Springs. Officers got here in about 1.5 minutes after the call was dispatched. As they boarded the train, as they were arriving, the call continued that one of them involved possibly had a gun. The officers got onto the platform, challenged that individual, who then ran off the train, down the platform, and onto our trackway, at which point a gun was produced by the suspect, and our officers ultimately shot, recovering a gun, and the suspect has now been transported to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Any questions?
Chief, what does it mean that the suspect produced a gun? Did he point it at the police officers?
So at this point, we're in the process of recovering video from both our station, our trains, and the body cameras from both officers that were on scene and involved. So at this point, we know a gun was involved, at which point, when we watch the video, we will verify all that information.
Can you tell us how many officers fired shots and approximately how many shots were fired?
I can't tell you that there was 2 officers involved. As far as how many shots were fired, that's going to be all part of the investigation. Do not know.
Can you talk about what's happening right now as far as the station and what you guys are doing to process the scene and how long it'll take?
Sure. So right now we have our evidence techs here that are recovering evidence from the scene. We're interviewing witnesses as well, and we're in the process of recovering station video, train car video, and again with the video from the body cameras of the involved officers.
Was the officer okay?
Yes.
The domestic disturbance, what does that mean? What was happening on the train?
It was a verbal argument between a male and a female, and it was called into us by a witness who was on our train, and that's how we got the call.
Did it stay on the train, or did they exit? Tell us about that.
So when officers responded, both the male and the female half were still on the train. At that point, that's when they challenged the male half of this dispute, and that's when he ran off the train.
So he was shot as he was running?
No, not at all. That's not what we said. No, what happened after he ran off the train, he ran down the platform and onto the trackway. He was on the trackway.
Since the officers were just going to talk to him, do you know what motivated him to flee?
Well, the fact that the call came in that he possibly had a gun, and our officers challenged him at gunpoint, and then he ran.
Okay, so to be clear, the caller, he or she said that they thought they saw a gun prior. So when the officers approached him, they believed he was armed.
Correct, because again, our witness at that moment saw what she thought was a handgun in his waistband, and he fled once our officers arrived.
Where is the suspect now?
He's at one of the local hospitals. I don't know exactly where, but he's at one of the local hospitals being treated.
What kind of weapon was recovered?
It's a handgun. I can't tell you exactly what kind it was, but it was a handgun.
One of the witnesses said that he did not point a gun at police, that it fell out. Would that be consistent with what you're hearing happened?
That's something that we're going to confirm and verify through video. Again, he got it down onto the trackway, so that's something that's going to have to be confirmed and verified through the process.
At any point, where was the suspect as he was trying to get away? Did he ever get onto the tracks or anything like that?
He did. So he got off the train, ran down the platform, and onto the tracks.
Can you talk about the woman at all? Did she exit the train? Did she follow the guy?
So we're with her now. We're still interviewing her along with additional witnesses. So that's going to be, again, all part of the investigation. It just, it's about 3 hours into it, so there's still a lot of moving pieces here. There's still a lot of information that we still got to go through, and that includes a lot of video evidence and interviews of witnesses. So, it's part of the process. It's going to be a lot of investigation, both the criminal investigation, administrative investigation, and a parallel investigation with the district attorney's office as well. Yes, she is.
We asked the police chief to elaborate on what the phrase that he used, which is that the suspect, quote, produced the gun. Did it mean that he pointed it at police officers or in a way that threatened them? The police chief said he wasn't going to elaborate until he had a chance to actually see the cameras, Juliet, that are supposed to be on the tracks and that might have caught this entire incident on surveillance camera.
Right, that will produce some information, and obviously the weapon has been recovered and there'll be an investigation. And so where you are right now, what happens with train service? I know it's been shut down for quite some time now.
Right, we're going on 3 hours with the train being shut down, and it is still shut down. What Bart tells us is they're trying to open one of the tracks so they can at least get trains going back and forth on one of the tracks, as the officers are literally up there on the tracks as we speak, investigating this shooting.
All right, we'll continue. We'll follow up on this at 6 o'clock and throughout the evening. Joe, thank you so much.
To you, I'm Andre Sr. We begin with that developing news out of El Cerrito, where Bart police shot a passenger who had run out of a Bart car and onto the tracks. That shooting happened just before 2 this afternoon at the El Cerrito del Norte station. KTV's Greg Liggins is there, where a police news conference wrapped up a short time ago. Greg.
Yeah, that's right, Andre. Right now, officers and an independent investigator are here still collecting evidence at the scene. Now, this shooting happened at about 2 o'clock this afternoon. It all began with an emergency call about a domestic dispute on a train that was actually headed toward Fremont. And the caller, according to police, reported that they believe the man involved had a gun. Now, when that train arrived here at the El Cerrito del Norte station, officers went to confront the suspect.
The officers got onto the platform, challenged that individual, who then ran off the train, down the platform, and onto our trackway, at which point a gun was produced by the suspect, and our officers ultimately shot.
I have a young child who is male and African American, and seeing the body of an African American male laying face forward in tracks was devastating.
Now, police are not releasing the name or age of the victim, but witnesses report a young woman who was with the victim yelling, "He's only 17." Police did not confirm that. Now, the victim was airlifted to an undisclosed hospital with what police say are life-threatening injuries, and police say they did recover a weapon on the scene, a handgun. Now, police will not say how many shots police fired, and they did not say that the victim fired at police, only that he produced a weapon. Still, lots of unanswered questions. The chief says they will be reviewing video from the train, the platform, as well as officer body cameras. And this afternoon, the chief did say the officers did a good job. He said they did what they were trained to do. I asked the chief what that was based on, if he had seen any video. He said, "No, I have not seen any video." He said he was basing that on eyewitness accounts as well as some of the police who were here on the scene. But officially, this case is still under investigation. Live in El Cerrito, Greg Liggins, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
And Greg, we know police are looking into that issue right now, but we know that so many people use the BART service. Do we know yet if service is up and running back at the El Cerrito BART station?
Well, service is running, but not at this station just yet, or the Richmond station. They do expect to have these two stations open soon. I asked Bart, are you talking about 30 minutes, an hour? They simply said soon, but certainly tonight, these stations will reopen.
All right, Greg Liggins reporting for us live in El Cerrito. Thank you so much, Greg.